All right, welcome to the Municipality of South Dundas special council meeting with his team and staff and audience for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move into action requests. CA 2023-02, Committee Council Appointments. C.O. Garrity.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as a follow-up to our meeting last week, we did do the council appointments for the committees, and this is just a follow-up appointing the members at large to their respective committees. This will be a living document as we move forward, because as you can see, there's still some vacancies within some of the groups. As we get more names added to the list, we'll bring back an amendment to the schedule. So these are the committee members that have been appointed thus far. We did give you an amended report. We did have Michael Burton that was added yesterday as well to the Waterfront Committee. So if there's any questions by council, certainly we'll be happy to answer them.
Nope, and I would like to thank for the Committee of Adjustment, Nicole Lowry, Mike Thompson, Mark Prost, Doug Millard as the alternate. I'll also thank Brenda Brunt for the Community Improvement Plan Review. Court of Revision, Ron Tuners, Ian Mudd. Dundas County Archives, Brianne Scott, Darlene Fawcett, Maureen Roach, Larry Empey, Milton Costria. Economic and Community Development, Brian Vino, Cindy L. Peters, Donnie Bowes, Jeff Pops, Noreen Hyatt Jervis, Michelle McMillan. On the Fence Viewers, Ron Tuners and Ian Mudd. Livestock Evaluators, Bruce Whitaker and Ian Mudd. SDNG Accessibility, Brenda Brunt. South Branch Community Fund, Doreen Henderson, Gerald Whitaker, Janice Froats, Marlene Lewis, Tracy Yeldon, Cindy L. Peters. And finally, on our waterfront committees, Iroquois, Keith Poor, Pierre Racine, Tammy Tom, John Ross, Peggy Germet. And on Morrisburg, Bert Marcellus, Chris Moran, Keith Robinson, Nancy Waldruff, Tricia Morrow, and Michael Burton. So thank you for all putting your names forward. Appreciate it very muchly. We do have a few vacancies open. So please contact us if you're interested. We will obviously be working more on the Youth Advisory Committee, and we'll be coming back shortly with the Recreation Committee terms of reference to kick that off. Nothing else to add, C.O. Garrity?
The only thing I will add is with myself and our clerk and deputy clerk, we will work with the committees on the council handbook that was created earlier this year. So we'll work with the committees to ensure that they understand what the process is for agendas, for getting the minutes to council, to ensure that they get on our council agendas.
So it'll be our responsibilities to get those first meetings kicked off, rename chairs, and go from there.
Correct.
Correct. So expect C.O. Garrity to work with all of us individually on those terms. So I do have a motion that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas accept report CAO 2023-02 to appoint various committee members to the committees as attached and as read. Have a motion there? Motion by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Bylaws, number 4A, clerk appointment. Very happy to have our new clerk sitting here with us tonight, Crystal LeBrun. So I have a motion based on this bylaw, number 2023-11, being a bylaw to appoint a clerk for the municipality of South Dundas, be read and passed, and open council signed and sealed. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ward, thank you very much. Seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Welcome, Crystal, to the team. Okay, we're moving into discussion items. Municipal budget. So we've reconvened from our budget meeting on February 3rd, where we deliberated for quite a few hours as follow-up from all the reading we had done previous and discussions staff had on preparing the budget. So we'll just turn it over to C.O. Garrity to kick off the next steps of our budget activities.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So you don't want to hear me talk for too long, so I won't. I'm going to hand it over to our Deputy Treasurer, Sean Mason. He'll go through a number of slides. We'll probably stop in between some slides just to look for some feedback or comments back from Council. Staff have taken back the initial budget. We've gone through each department and we think we've made some significant savings. Over the last few weeks, we've also added some things due to decisions that from the budget day by council, as well as some delegations that have come forward over the last few weeks to council as well too. So the hope is tonight is that we can hopefully agree on a path forward so that the target is that we can bring a budget bylaw back by March 13th, and so that we can get the tenders out. Because the sooner we can get the tenders out, the sooner we can get projects going and hopefully find some cost savings throughout the tender. The one thing I will note for council is budgets are always estimates. So just because the fact that we have a budget, just because we get to that amount in, say, September, doesn't mean we stop the work. We continue the work, but we keep you updated at all times when we hit those marks. So, as I said, Sean will go through some items, and we'll look for some direction moving forward from council. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Thank you and good evening. Council will find on their desks a couple of hard copies of some items that were included in the agenda. Two of these are amending what was copied in the agenda. Page 10, the potential levy impacts. The levy and debenture lines have been changed to reflect the moving of the debt charges from the landfill over to the debt charge portion. And page 12, the capital program, the recreation subtotal has been reduced by $10,000 to reflect removing of the flex rail replacement for the marina. The copy I gave to you in the agenda didn't remove the 10. The copy you have on your desk removes the 10. I have put together a slideshow. The first couple of slides are where we are today with the net tax levy and where we need to be to get to a target. The following slides then summarize any changes proposed for each department or function. Treasury has listed some items for council's consideration to further reduce the levy with potential service cuts, reductions, or postponements. Yeah, it's doing nothing. There we go. Okay, so this is the taxation summary. This is where we sit right now. The number I have circled there is 8.2 million. This is reflects a year-over-year increase of 6.66% for the tax levy, net tax levy. And the bottom number of 5.97 is where we would be for year-over-year increase for the tax rate. Next one. The target of 5.5%. At the meeting of February 3rd, Council directed staff to cut the levy to a year-over-year increase of 5.5%. To reach that target, another $89,740 would need to come off that levy. Alternatively, to attain a 5.5 increase to the tax rate, another $36,000 would need to come off the levy. Staff have done what we feel is reasonable to cut that levy to where we are today, and I welcome your comments as to where we're going to go from here.
Deputy Mayor St. Pierre?
You, Mayor Broad, just to confirm, it was the tax rate that we were targeting at 5.5, not the tax levy.
Okay.
Just to confirm that.
Okay.
Other comments?
No? Okay.
Very good.
All right, so
before Sean moves on then. Just so, is council fine with the 5.5 tax rate target? Because if that's what council wants to target, then that means we need to look at $36,230 within the next few slides to get to that target rate.
Deputy Mayor St. Pierre?
You, Mayor Broad. I think that's a pretty open-ended question at this time.
Yep.
I think this is what we want to target, but I think where you're going with this presentation may allow us to see some savings elsewhere. Look, in the ideal world, we all would like to get the lowest tax rate possible, correct?
Yep.
So I think it was the 5.5 is what we kind of started with.
Yep.
And if we see something along the way that could help us get better to maybe 5% of a tax rate, even better for us.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so these are just some summaries of what's happened since we last met. We have adjusted the capital as from the meeting that we had on February 3rd. The capital program now comes in at $2.5 million, and the funding showed there from the reserves and reserve funds, grants and donations, and the tax rate to fund the $2.5 million plan. Each department now with administration, just a reminder, the compensation review and the voice over internet protocol phone system funded by reserves of $59,000. We've removed the communications shared student at a cost of $4,000 and the corresponding Canada Summer Jobs funding of $2,100. For council's information, there's a funeral program that was raised from $15,000 to $20,000 in the last term of council. A consideration could be to put that number back to $15,000. This is the summary of administration, and you can't see if you look at the very bottom at $988,608, the bottom line, second from the right, that is the number that affects the levy. Each one of the departments has this number at the bottom, and those numbers all summed together are what we arrive at the net levy. For council, staff have increased the SD&G County's cost recovery for the mayor and deputy mayor conferences up by $3,830. And another consideration that council may look at is that the increase of $26,000 that was proposed on budget day, that amount may be rethought as well. And the effect on the levy for council is $239,470. And sorry, if there's any comments or questions, please stop me as soon as you have one.
Deputy Mayor Sapir?
For you, Mayor Broad, just on your funeral program, remind us again, year after year, is the funds pretty much used up each year, or?
It's through the chair to Councillor St. Pierre, or Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, it's kind of hit and miss, depends on the year. This year we've hit the max and we had to not pay out the amount that was fully claimed because we hit the max for 20,000.
Okay.
Other years we've come in somewhat under that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ward?
I have a similar question, so through you, Mayor, about the funeral program. How does one apply for the funeral program? How do we assess if they need access to the funeral how do we determine who gets the money for the funeral program?
Through the chair to Councillor Ward, the local funeral homes, when they put on the services, they will send us an invoice as to what the cost of the services was. The municipality will reimburse them up to the maximum, if it's four funerals or 5 funerals, up to the maximum of $20,000. I believe it's all handled within the funeral home service.
I can add to that, and maybe this will add to the answer. So in Ontario, if you're not on CPP, there is no funeral payment. So someone that has been on Ontario Works receives zero funding towards a funeral. And this program is to support some of those residents as well as others. You want to add to that?
Yeah, further to your comments, Mr. Mayor, it is when we budget in the administration budget for the funeral, we will budget a transfer to come from reserves for $15,000, and we will budget $5,000 as a revenue from CPP. If we don't receive that $5,000 from CPP, the rest of it's funded from the variances in the tax rate.
Thank you.
For Treasury, this is a reminder that the industrial park debt charges have been removed from the tax rate of $105,338. Those debt charges are now being paid by the sale of assets reserve, where the funds have landed for the sale of the industrial park. So we cannot pay the loan out early, so we will pay the debt charges until the debt is settled or the funds have been depleted. Treasury have increased bank interest revenue by $20,000 for 2023, and that's due to the increased prime rate and our higher interest revenue. Treasury contributes $462,420 to the annual levy, and you'll see in the very bottom right-hand corner that includes the $105,000 that's been removed for the debt charges. Fire and Emergency Services, just a reminder that all of the master plan and the capital are all being funded by reserves. Mandatory training has been estimated at $140,000. Part of that is being funded by a reserve of $70,000. And there's been an increase to the asset management transfer of $10,000 year over year. And there have been no other changes to the operating budget. And the fire
Deputy,
department, sorry.
Deputy Mayor St. Pierre.
Through you, Mayor Broad, just on the fire emergency services budget, is it all from reserves or is some going towards the tax rate?
Through the chair to Councillor St. Pierre, for the, specifically for capital or for the,
Yeah, for capital.
capital is all being funded by reserves.
Okay, all being funded by reserves. Okay. Okay, thank you.
And the fire department ask of the tax levy for 2023 is $899,530. For the building department for 2023, staff have increased the fees to permit revenue by $8,000 and has increased the transfer from reserve for $2,000. The building department is probably looking at a $22,000 surplus for 2022, and that number will be reserved and brought in for 2023. And the building department is having an effect on the tax rate of $80,474. Bylaw on animal control, there have been no changes to the operating budget since we last met, and the ask on for the tax rate is $116,115. $160,115. Planning, staff made a small increase to planning fees of $4,000, and that increase would allow for the ask on the tax levy to drop to $58,698. Public Works. Public Works has proposed a $1.1 million capital program for 2023. That's being funded, as you can see, from Canada Community Building Fund and the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund of just over $1 million, and a small reserve transfer of $19,000 for the street lights on Crookshank Way. The OSIM review for 2023, which is required every 2 years, is partly being funded from the reserve of $24,850. This, you also see there the new asset management transfer for 2023, which is necessary to fund our asset management plan going forward of $154,000. And there have been increases to 2 lines since we last met. $55,000 to grading contracts for additional grader rental, and $5,000 addition to brushing contracts for the rental of a lift. And if we go to the next page, and the impact on the net levy for Public Works is $2.6 million. Okay. Fleet. The capital purchases are to be funded by the reserve fund, which is the fire half-ton, $65,000, the tandem axle plow, $356,000, the patrol half-ton of $56,000, the snow plow, blade and sander for the 3/4 ton at $30,000, and the electric ice servicer at $140,000. There has been an increase to the asset management transfer for 2023 of $83,000 to fund future purchases, and other than that, there were no changes to the operating budget. And fleet will require a transfer amount of $682,578 from the net levy. Environmental services, staff have made a few changes here. The capital dollars for the transfer station has been reduced by $18,629 to match the funding available. Waste recycling, curbside have each been reduced by $6,000 due to the calculation in the contract. Landfill consulting has been reduced by $20,000, and removed the compost curbside collection service proposed at $15,000. One consideration council may have for environmental services is postponing the food cycler program for 2023, which has a net effect on the levy of $22,100. And the ask from the from the tax rate for environmental services is almost 1.3 million.
Councillor Smith?
What was the remove the compost curbside collection? Exactly what was that? So,
Say O'Garrity?
Yep, through you, Mayor, Rod, to Councillor Smith. So that was originally, we had a discussion about possibly doing the curbside collection for our compost.
okay.
The price came in at $15,000 a week. So we initially
Okay.
had $15,000 in the budget just as a placeholder until we got the price from HGC. But if council was wanting to do, 4 weeks of curbside, you're looking at $60,000. And council, I believe, on the day of the budget was that we would look down the road of possibly looking at implementing that. So for this year, we are keeping the 6 compost days that are initially in the budget, as well as the Matilda landfill is free to take composted there as well.
Continue, Treasurer, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Municipal drains, there's been no change to the operating budget since we last met, and the ask on the net levy for municipal drains is $131,900. Recreation, just a reminder, the capital program is funded by reserve funds, $55,000, reserves $85,000, donations $55,000, and the tax rate contributes $94,000. Since we last met, the tools and equipment line has been increased for lift rentals of $6,500. And council may consider postponing the dollar for dollar program of $17,500, which is the gazebo proposed by the Iroquois and District Business Group, and or the Williamsburg Cenotaph of $15,000 as proposed last week by MP Duncan. The bottom line for recreation ask to the tax rate is $873,187. Okay. Recreation programming, there are capital purchases that are going to be funded by donations, grants, and reserves for a total of $37,700. And staff have removed a third of the communication student for $4,177. The levy hit for recreation programming is $77,700 for 2023. The campsite. The campsite operations are revenue neutral in that the user fees offset the expenditures and also provide for a annual surplus. The capital for 2023 is funded by reserves of $7,500. There have been no operations changes made since the last meeting. And as it is revenue neutral, it is $0 effect on the tax rate. Marina, same situation. Operations are revenue neutral. Just a reminder, the dock repairs have supplanted the flex rail replacement at the marina to the tune of $36,328 is the estimate. That will require an increase from transfer from reserves for $15,500, and staff are expecting insurance to cover just over $20,000. And as mentioned, there is no effect on the tax rate for marina services. Facilities. Facilities funding for the capital program is listed there. The ask on the tax rate for capital is $77,580. There have been no other changes to the operating budget since the February 3rd meeting. And the ask on the tax rate for facilities is $1.1 million. Continuing on to economic development and tourism, there are $5,900 of capital purchases that are being funded by reserves. We have, as council had requested, we've removed the housing strategy for $20,000. We've subsequently removed the transfer to reserve for the Iroquois Streetscape for $20,000. Also removed a third of the communication shared student for $4,100. And we have increased the need for lift rentals of $6,500. Economic Development has an ask of $200,900 from the tax rate. PILs and grants. This is where you'll find the one-time transfer for fuel inflation from the working reserve for $175,000. This number looks a bit different on the bottom. This number actually contributes to the tax rate of $1.8 million. That number on the bottom, if we did not have that, your levy would be over $10 million. Health services and debt charges. Debt charges from the Williamsburg landfill have been moved here for the total of, for an amount of $138,483. We will probably be retitling this next year to make more sense, because health service is actually a minor part of this budget now. And because of that transfer of $138,000, that's now what the ask is of the levy. But the savings appear on the landfill side. Crossing guards and the Conservation Authority. There's been no adjustments to these budget lines, and the ask is $107,000 from the tax, $107,000 from the tax rate. I've droned on long enough. I'll take questions in this near discussion.
Thanks, Deputy Treasurer Mason. So obviously, we didn't have a lot of questions during. We wanted to obviously intake the entire documentation and just see where we're at. Some of my, initial thoughts, that a couple areas we could be thinking about. The Williamsburg Cenotaph, I truly believe that should have came from the sale of assets when we sold the building. I think that's an area where we should take that from that reserve, the sale of asset reserve, for $15,000. I would, on the mention of the Iroquois landscape, something that we need to contribute to, and maybe if it's not this year, but something that we need to keep on our radar for future, because that's something that we would definitely probably need to look at and have that money at some point, but it may not be right for the 2023 budget. But those are two items I saw. I do have a few other comments, but if any of the team councilors have any comments, areas we want to go, questions, Councilor Vino.
Just about the Iroquois streetscape. So from a safety standpoint, school's going to be out here shortly, and then next year there's going to be, you got your Tim Hortons and all that now kind of freshly opened, and whatnot going on over there. I think we need to, I don't know if we can do it in this budget, but we need to be looking at a crosswalk for Iroquois. If nothing else, we don't need to really beautify the streetscape right now, maybe. Hopefully it wouldn't be $20,000 for a crosswalk, but just from a safety standpoint, I'd like to, I don't know, what does everybody think on that one?
Yeah, crosswalk is definitely, CO Garrity?
So just a little bit of information I can probably add is we are working on some different concepts right now in Iroquois, as far as, to your point, a crosswalk, as well as some other pathways that would take people off the road to the south side. But certainly, with removing the $20,000 from the streetscape budget, it is sitting in the planning reserve right now. So if we do have a plan in the near future, we can certainly bring a report back to council and say we'd like to draw $18,000 from the planning reserve to fund that project.
Okay. All right. Just as long as it was on our radar.
No, yeah, absolutely. I really want it on our radar for sure, but Deputy Mayor St. Pierre?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad, just to, on your crosswalk, they're expensive. Yeah, because you're probably looking at a PXO, very similar to the crosswalks we have here, the flashing lights. Yeah, they can be quite expensive for that. So to be honest with you, your $20,000 is the cheapest way to go. No, it won't come in. No, just. Yeah, no, you don't. Not through the highway. If it's a local street, then you would do some paint markings and whatnot. But for a major highway like that, it's lit and.
CO Garrity?
So according to our Director of Transportation, you're probably looking at about $18,000 to $20,000 for a crosswalk, is what we paid for it here.
For the lit. Sorry,
The ones that are right here.
For the lit ones
Yep.
that
Yep.
really.
Yep.
On Ottawa Street.
Ottawa
That-
Street.
Oh, Ottawa
Ottawa
Street,
Street,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But number 2
Might be different.
might be different.
Exactly right. We'd have to work with the counties on that as well, too, what
Correct.
their specifications would be.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct,
And-
correct.
Oh, sorry.
Councilor Vino?
Just back to, so if we have to work with the counties anyways, do they have any, would they help on a project like that potentially? Just,
So usually for sidewalks or crosswalks like that, it's usually the responsibility of the lower tier. But certainly we can have a conversation with the counties and see what type of partnership we can work on.
okay. As long as it's on our radar, that was my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Deputy Mayor?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, of
through
course.
you, just a question on the grants and donations. So what's the maximum amount we have in the budget? Because my notes showed that we wanted to have an upset limit of about $40,000.
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, for grants and donations, staff had provided in the budget for $71,000,
Correct?
which was to include the $50,000 for Dundas Manor, and $3,000 for the Dundas County Hospice. So that would leave, whatever the math is, sorry. Yes, sorry, 18,000. And then council requested at the February 3rd meeting to add 26 to that number.
Okay, sorry, through you, Mayor Brown, maybe I just misunderstood because I thought the direction was it would be capped at $40,000 and then we would figure out what grants and donations we would contribute to on that maximum. cap
That's
of
not my
40,000.
understanding from the meeting.
Okay,
So we have the Dundas Manor we have to contribute to, and the
Hospice.
hospice we have to contribute to. So it's the
Sorry,
balance of what we.
excluding them,
Excluding those,
excluding them
correct.
two
So we could
items.
decide what's the
Excluding
maximum.
the two items.
Excluding those two items.
yes.
Yeah. So right now you have 44,000 that has been
44,000.
unallocated it there.
Okay, so
yeah.
it is there, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, it was excluding, thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
we just
It
wanted to
was
make sure we were
excluding the
on
two
the same
items.
page.
Yeah. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Councilor Ward?
I have a few comments,
Yeah, of
Mayor, if
course.
I could just go
Yep.
through my list. So a few of the things that I've kind of talked about before too, so I apologize if I'm bringing it up again, but the water plant loan is still in the finance department of $25,000. I know that that has to come back through bylaw, but that's $25,000 sitting there that the entire tax base is paying. The environmental services, the $22,000 for the food cycler, if council is willing, we could remove that. I did speak to CAO Garrity before the meeting, and he did acknowledge that there was no one that was on a late waiting list for them. So I understand it's an important program, but when it comes right down to it, if we want to make our tax rate affordable, that might be something. The food cycler, people can buy on their own if they would like to. It's not going to stop them from participating in Food Cycle Sciences Initiative. It's just we won't be subsidizing it. I have a question as well. Sorry, I'm just going to go through my list
Absolutely, yeah.
and
No,
please
this is-
stop me.
Yeah, this is good. Yep, no worries.
Municipal drains. So when I go to the municipal drain budget, and I don't know if the deputy treasurer could go back to that slide and perhaps Mr. St. Thomas can assist with this, but my question is we have a line in there for consulting and for beaver control. So municipal drains are supposed to be billed back to the drain. So I guess I want to know what it gets to it, there it is. I think it's $20,000 and $30,000. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
So there's $30,000 for consulting and subcontracting, and then there's $20,000 in there for beaver control. So historically, looking at what we've spent, we've not ever spent $20,000. I know we were looking to increase the rate at which we paid for beaver control. However, and I'm not sure, I believe the last council permitted beaver control to be paid for by the tax base, correct? So maybe that's something this council wants to look at, is sending that back out to the drain, because usually the drain pays for beaver removal.
Deputy Treasurer Mason?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ward. You will, of course, know this, but some of those listening at home probably don't know this, is that any Generally speaking, with the last term of council, they thought that all beaver dams were being removed on the tax rate. The only time that the municipality generally would bill back the beaver dam removal is if it was expensive enough that we could apply for a grant. And the rest of it would be expensed through the tax rate. As for the consulting line, that is the number that we use for the drainage engineer when the company is updating assessment schedules or such that we cannot reclaim from the watersheds.
So
Follow?
through-
Yeah.
through you,
Yeah.
Mayor, but council, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mason, so council would decide if an assessment schedule needs to be updated. Generally speaking, that assessment schedule update should go back to the original drain, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Ward, that's out of my bailiwick. I would let the drainage super speak to that.
Yeah, he's got his hand up, sorry.
Yes,
He's not-
under Section 76, when we do an update of the assessment schedule, it is billed back to the watershed.
So through you,
Councilor Ward.
Mr. Mayor, so do we need to put $30,000 into the tax budget then, Mr. St. Thomas?
Well, I've only been here since October, so I don't know how much the engineer has been used in the past.
Right, so
CO
through you, Mayor, to the.
CEO Garrity?
So through you, Mayor, Broad to Councillor Ward. So we can certainly reduce that number. We did always, even when Justin was around, we kept some consulting money to the side in case we needed to pick whether Monica or somebody's kind of brain on some drainage issues that were not part of the watershed, but certainly we can reduce that even by 10,000. Ultimately, in the day, like I said at the very beginning, if we need to spend more, we'll certainly come to council and say, here's the reasons why spending more.
And through you, Mary, I'm just looking at the line, right? So we spent $11,000 in 2022.
Yep.
I know that's unaudited. I'm sure Mr. Mason will tell me that. From 11,000 to 30,000, that's a big jump. And if we're trying to get to that 5.5%, I
Yes,
see
yeah.
some money right there. I also think that the beaver removal, if that's a discussion council wants to have a different day, that's fine. But there's room there too, because again, we only spent $11,000 there and we're asking for 20.
CEO Garrity?
The other thing I will add about the beaver control is we did update their wage last year, and that wasn't until probably mid through last year, so that number would probably rise in a full year.
Okay. And then can I
All right.
just?
Deputy
oh,
Treasurer Mason, further comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and for clarity on the $30,000 line, that's actually two lines. There's the subcontractor, which is the engineer, and there's also $10,000 in there for municipal costs of maintenance if they're identified in the report.
Right.
That's those two numbers added together.
Certain opportunity maybe for a few savings here, like we could
Yes.
reduce some on that. Councillor Ward, what were you
So through you,
thinking?
Mary, yeah, I would think we should reduce the 30,000. My suggestion be from the $30,000 line, find out, Mr. St. Thomas should know which drains he's doing this year, and find out how much engineering we actually need and how much should be billed back to the drain. And then we should have a rough idea on what costs are going to be billed back to the roads, a rough cost, and just adjust that as needed. And then the same with the beaver control. I know that fluctuates, so it is what it is, but I think we can cut that back down if possible.
No, we'll certainly look at that and yep.
Okay, yes?
And I have one last comment, if I may.
Yes, you
Mayor.
may.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
So I
it's
just
our
want to
time.
bring, I know we have delegations coming up through different conferences that we may be going to, and this is not specifically to reduce the budget, so I apologize if I'm going off, but I just want to draw council's attention to the last slide, which looks at the amount of money we get from the St. Lawrence Parks Commission with regard to their land. If the CAO can bring that. So for all of the land St. Lawrence Parks has in South Dundas, they pay us $5,444 for taxes, which is extremely low.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that up and let the tax base know that's something I think this council is looking to work on, and hopefully that number will increase hopefully, fingers crossed, and
Yes, certainly thinking about, so St. Lawrence Parks, which is campgrounds, marinas, up Canada Village, golf courses.
which
right?
is
They're-
commercial.
Which they're in, some of those activities are in the same business that we have, business owners in South Dundas in. And they should probably be paying a different tax rate than they are today. Whereas, a tourist spot like Upper Canada Village, it's our heritage of the Lost Villages, is a different story. So
Yes.
I think there's opportunities for us to approach provincially the members at hand and see what opportunities are in that area for sure.
That's my list, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, no, excellent. A couple areas, I'm going back to the overall budget. If we wanted, thinking about, and David Jansen, stand by here. On this one, like in our facilities budget, we have, completing interlocking brick at the Brinston Park, ease troughing to the facilities at the archives, Civic Center, complete the architectural study. We got Public Works, replace and repair some overhead doors, finish the washroom at Matilda Hall, and finish the design of the Morrisburg Arena. I don't particularly see any opportunities for us not to do ease troughing, which affects foundations, the interlocking brick, trip hazards, the arena upgrade from accessibility. We need to continue on that as we're moving forward with delegation on that arena to hopefully get funding on that. Obviously, we have to finish the washrooms. We can't have a facility without washrooms. I don't see any opportunities, David. Mr. Jansen, is there any opportunities in any of those line items where we could make a change?
To your point, Mr. Mayor, I'd also point out that on that capital list, I think only about 77,000 of it is actually on the tax rate. So even if you're picking and choosing at those projects, some of them might be funded by reserves and stuff like that. So there's only, of all those projects, only 77,000 of them are hitting the tax rate. So that's even slimmer of what we can pick and choose from.
Excellent. Just pointing out, we don't have much opportunity in facilities, which is a big budget at that point. As well as I look at the roads budget, most of our work is being funded through the programs. Some sidewalk work, reflective work, some line painting, and the studies that's required. Again, not much opportunity at the tax base in that roads department. I think, though, potentially as an operations, fuel costs, there's a lot of activities that are somewhat unknown what they may come in at, and I think during the year we can be very observant to how we spend the money, but we may not be able to realize it today in a specific budget item to say, yeah, we'll spend less on gas or we'll spend less in this area. Comments on that, Deputy Mayor?
Brought into you, I guess, to that point, then potentially, is it help us if we do reduce that the fuel cost maybe down from 175 to 150,000?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. So the 175,000 that we've put in as a softening feature from the reserve for fuel, I actually did do an analysis of how much our fuel had gone up, and with surcharges and actual cost over the year, and it was very close to that. So if we get close to that in 2023, you can reduce it. You can reduce the transfer now, and then it would just, that whatever you reduce, it would just fall to the tax rate.
So the answer is yes. It would help us. It would help the tax rate if we reduce.
It would go the other way. It would abuse the tax rate. If you reduce the transfer from the reserve.
Yeah,
it
okay,
would-
so it's all from transfer.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, again, I'm looking at these line items. I've spent the time again over the last 2 weeks since our last meeting. Things are costing us more. We can't avoid, sure, we are going to, bring in, $8 million worth of tax revenues, and we're going to spend it, but it's because we're costing us more. Yeah, Councillor Vino.
I think it's, I've gone through it like you have over the last little while, and short of reducing services, like outright reducing services or canceling services, this is what services in South Dundas cost in today's world. Although Councillor Ward had some excellent points.
No, I think we're finding out some opportunities. Obviously, we've
Yes,
had some opportunities.
100%.
And as we keep digging into it, for sure. Councillor Ward?
This is a comment I have too, and so I think people are aware at home the first slide is actually really great, just for education purposes.
Sir
but I-
Garrity, could you go to slide
Sorry.
1? Because folks will be able to see that as we're talking.
Just mainly because if you look at the year-over-year percent increase, that's about what the year-over-year increase is right now to run my household. So, a year-over-year increase is based on inflation, and that's what we're paying for. So to Councillor Vino's point, if we want to cut it anywhere below that, we're going to have to start cutting services, and I don't think that's something that I've heard from our tax base that they want to see. The other thing I want to highlight too is our contribution to the asset reserve, which is so important, because if we stop doing that now, we're just going to have to do it next year and the following year, and it's just going to escalate. So I think we're being smart and responsible with this increase. I know nobody wants a big increase, but I do think that it's taking into consideration future as well as our present reality. So that'd be my last comment about the budget. Thank you.
So I think we've so far potentially 15,000 of the cenotaph from the sale of assets. We have opportunities in the beaver control in that area. What did you, was that about 30,000 we found at that point?
Yeah, we were probably around 30,000, I guess. The only comment I would say is in regards to the food cycler, if it's something that council
As a food
wants to
cycler,
look
correct.
at cutting, then that will be another 22,000 on top of that as well, too.
Yeah, I think that a program we'd like to have, and maybe we can promote that our residents take that on themselves.
Yes.
And continue to advocate for that program. I think it's an area we could cut.
And to give some context to council is, we did do the 100 unit program last year. We didn't have a waiting list. The cost of that was 150. What we're proposing this year is 50 of the old units at 150 and 50 other new units, which are $350 now to buy. So I said, ultimately the goal is to divert it away from our landfill, but certainly it's one of those programs that's maybe is a nice to have, not a need.
Would it be worthwhile to keep the program just at a small amount so that we have opportunities for some new folks to sign up? It's not no, it's yes, but we're limited on the amount of people.
You can certainly reduce, right now in the budget is 50 units of the old and 50 of the new. You could go 25 and 25. They do have in their agreement where it's an automatic buyout, so in a year's time we don't sell it, they will buy it back from us at the same price, less the shipping fee.
Admin fee, okay. Councilor Ward?
I think that at this point in our budget discussion, and the environmentalist in me really thinks that this is an important program and really wants to see it succeed, but it's also it's not a need. Like it's a want, right? It's a nice to have, and I don't, residents can go out and buy that if they want to, whereas some of these other things they wouldn't be able to. So I personally feel that we should just put that project aside for now. I think that there are opportunities coming down the pipeline from the province with regards to recycling and how that's going to unfold, where there might be opportunities for partnerships for organics, recycling, et cetera. And maybe we can look at that as part of the transition in 2024, and we can start planning for it. And that's something, once we have someone in place, we can work on. But I would, if council agrees, I would be on board with cutting the program to save the 22,000 this year.
Anybody against? Councilor Smith?
I don't want to say I'm against, but just one comment. We already cut the curbside pickup. Do we want to cut this as well? Maybe, like I'm just saying it's been too no's for anything food recycling related, and I'm just kind of thinking, should we just have a small window there instead of having it, 20,000 or whatever? Maybe we could do that 5 or I don't know, just.
Yeah, entering into the yard waste pickup was feedback we all had heard through the election periods of some frustrations on the current method of the drop-off days. So we were thinking about starting some sort of program to offset that. Obviously, we have the program days set for 2023, so we have those dates lined up. So just cutting that is fine, right? We can do those days, so just cutting that service. But yeah, the food cyclers, maybe just cut it so we save it. CO Garrity?
Yeah, so just for some context for council, so in the budget, we still have the compost days, which have not been selected for this year yet.
Okay.
Certainly, if council wants to explore a different option with the money we have allocated in the budget for the compost days, we're certainly can bring it back at a later date for council to review, but there's some money there, so people will still have an option of a depot day, plus we've extended the hours at the Milchita landfill, so
Okay.
they're able to bring back compost there as well, too.
Okay.
Correct, so the specific days aren't
Right.
set, but we have the budget
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
days is
Yep.
what I meant. Yeah, we have the
Okay.
days in the budget already, so it wouldn't be like one or the other.
All right.
Yeah. Your cutting food cycler gets us at 52,000. Any other opportunities? One of the things we may not realize immediately, but in one of our previous meetings, we did take a look at all the user rates. So revenues, going into next year, maybe for next seasons on some events, which start in the fall and then in next year, I think user rates is an area where we need to take a very good look and see what our residents can afford and what our competition is doing in that area. So I think those user rates, we should have a good look at again and see where opportunities are to create revenue, which then would help us on that side. Councilor Vino.
I do have one thought on fire and emergency. And I might have asked this before and I might have forgot, so forgive me, but mandatory training being that's mandated on us from our federal and provincial partners, provincial, I guess. There's no help from the province to help with that training, or is
So
it?
Garrity?
So there has been discussions as far as some possible funding. We just haven't heard what kind of allocation it will be or when it will kind of roll out.
Because that was $140,000?
Correct.
On the tax base? Or is
Some
that-
came from reserve.
Some came from
Yeah.
reserve?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are looking for a little bit of assistance there?
Yeah. So certainly throughout the year, when budget's set, we always are strong on looking at possible grants and subsidies. That always doesn't reduce the tax rate because it's already set, but it allows for surpluses in the year that rolls back into the respective reserve funds. So we're always looking at those kind of grants and subsidies. We're always looking at savings, and that's, I think, why a key point of getting budget passed sooner is that we can get more competitive pricing so that hopefully what we've budgeted, it'll come under that price.
So just one more point on
Yes,
that
Vito.
one then. This would be for council with their conferences and delegations that we have coming up. Would that be something that we could look at partnering with neighboring municipalities? Because we're all in the same boat here. We all need to pay for this mandatory training. Might be something we could get together with a group and try and go after a delegation for a little bit of money for that, because that's a pretty large ticket item.
It is a large ticket item, and it's training we need to supply,
Yeah.
even if it's not regulated. We need our firemen well-trained
Yeah.
to execute their work as well, so we would be doing training no matter what, but
Yeah.
in the area we could play in that, shared costs or
Mm-hmm.
funding.
Yeah, so something to think about. I don't think we can do anything with the budget today, but
Well, but it's an ongoing year on year, right?
Yes.
The training, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's, point well taken.
Mason. Oh, sorry.
Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I were to consider against the levy right now, cutting the food cycler at 22,100, funding the Williamsburg Cenotaph project of 15,000 from the reserve fund, and cutting the drainage budget by 10,000, that would arrive you at a potential levy change of 6.05% year for year, and a potential tax rate increase on the residential side of 5.36%. That's very preliminary numbers, but that's, I think, where we are right at this moment.
Councilor Smith.
You, Mary Broad, I just had a few questions. The tile loan program, so the money comes from OMAFRA every year to us, and then or yeah, so we collect the money every year and then we send it to OMAFRA. So if we are unsuccessful in collecting the money, do we still have to send it to OMAFRA? How does, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Smith, what happens is that if a landowner defaults on the loan, or even just doesn't make a payment, we transfer it to taxes. It's collectible in like manner to taxes. So it becomes part of their taxes, which we can lien the property that way, if
Okay.
needed.
But we still have to transfer the money irregardless?
Yes.
Okay. So something else I wrote down was the Iroquois streetscape. I think we should do that transfer 20,000. I still am in favor of that, even, I just think we should do it. I think we should. The industrial park loan that we were talking about, how long is that loan for?
Ooh,
10 years.
is it 10 years?
10 years.
Still like 10 more years?
No, it's originally 10 years was the loan. I believe we might be halfway through that, I think.
No,
No?
we're like in year 3, maybe
Oh, okay.
year 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
I could get you a firm answer.
I was
It's just on my desk.
I was just curious. And the other question I wrote down was the planning fees. We were hoping to increase by 4,000. How are we going to get that?
Through the chair to Councillor Smith. The planning fees, tab 9. I added $2,000 to the zoning rezoning line, which was presented initially at 9,000, but in 2022, we landed at 11,000. And I also added 2,000 to the consent line, which was presented at 15,000, and in 2022 returned 17,800. So if things stay even keel, we'll be okay. If not, we may just be off a few dollars.
I was curious. Okay.
Councilor Vino.
Actually, to Councillor Smith's point, if we're at 5.3% rate right now, preliminary numbers, if you were to add the 20K for the transferred reserves for the Iroquois streetscape back in, are you able to do the math on that?
Yeah, that will take me a
before-
minute.
Yeah, I figured it would, but just it's, if you could, because I also would like to see some money put away for the streetscape up there for some crosswalks and whatnot.
So that would make the levy 6.3%.
Sorry, is that not in the reserves?
It
Was that
can-
not transferred from reserves?
It's,
So, Deputy Treasurer.
so through the chair to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, so the money, if we're setting up a new transfer, it would be a hit against the tax rate. The money is available if we wanted to access it through another reserve, like the planning reserve, working capital reserve, any of them.
The money's
But
there.
if it's council's intent to set up a new transfer, that would be a detriment to the tax rate.
Yeah, and Economic Development, Hunter had suggested that on February 3rd. That's where the original comment came from. Councilor Ward?
To Councillor Vino's point, so that money already sits in the planning reserve, so I think that money that we know is there, we can just go through the planning reserve, because that's what that money is set aside through when they do land development. And I would hope as that corridor continues to develop, that we will add to that reserve through that initiative, and then we can do the crosswalks through that reserve, because that reserve's, I think, at 40,000.
Yeah.
Mr. Mason, so there's more than enough in there for that. Well, I hope there's more than enough in there for the crosswalk.
So Rob's point, so we had a reserve fund for the Morrisburg streetscape, and so is that where he was coming from? He wanted a designated one for the Iroquois, like there was for Morrisburg, essentially?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, well, if it's in planning then
Today, we could use funds from planning
Yeah.
to start next year. Then if we had an official plan that was a bigger project, then we could then, hey, let's
Okay.
just specifically create a Iroquois
yeah.
street safe fund. So today we could spend the money just in a different fashion than originally presented. Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor, I just think the key is we just need to identify 20,000 out of the planning reserve is for the Iroquois streetscape. And then that way there's no hit to anybody.
Yeah, let's not spend that money on something else. We'll
Correct. Correct.
Earmark that for Iroquois.
Correct.
Seal Garrity?
Through you, Mayor Broad, to Councillor Smith. So the debenture for the industrial park was in 2019. Yeah. And it was a 10-year loan. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Broad. So just, if we're now back at the 5.3, and we kind of wanted a 5.5, how much of the food cycler program can we add back in? Because I'm thinking a little bit more what Councillor Smith said. I mean, waste management and curbside was very verbalized during our election campaign. And, you know, I'm just
So we could do, sorry.
just kind of with Councillor Tom, like if we put some back in there, what would that mean? And how much, would it even be worth it, I guess? To put a little bit. Correct.
Monetary value of 0.2%.
Well, we could put back in 14,000. We needed to get. Seal
Does that
Garrity?
matter? You know, I'm just-
Through you,
just
Mayor
asking.
Broad, to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. So I'm just trying to find the agreement because there might be a certain minimum that you have to fulfill in order to gain that subsidy. And,
Okay.
and it might not be worth the advantage of it.
And through you, Mayor Brown, that's really the question I'm
Yeah.
asking. Like, where's the threshold that it's
Yeah.
really worth?
So right now, we're considering 52,000. To get to 5.5 was 36,000, the difference. The delta today is 16,000.
Right.
So we could put 16,000 back in.
We could, but it may not be worth it.
Correct.
Right.
It may not be worth it. Seal Garrity?
Just for council, if it's something that council is really adamant about providing compost, you know, council could take that 16, throw it into the compost depot days, and when we could bring something back to council and have more of a discussion with a bigger pot of money of what we can do to provide more services for the compost.
Yeah, I like that.
Through you, Mayor Brown, I like that idea. I personally like that idea.
Councillor Ward?
I was actually going the opposite way. I was either going to suggest that we spend the 16 or 14,000 on community donations. I'm of the mindset that if we're going to do composting, curbside collection is my preference and what I've heard a lot through the community. And I think the depot days aren't what the community wants, so I wouldn't want to give them more of what they already have said that they don't want, to me anyways. I know there's going to be an opportunity coming very soon to council that we'll talk about how we can afford curbside collection for composting. So I'm of the mindset I'd rather just do it right the first time. But if that's council's direction, I'm supportive either way. I just thought maybe we could reassign the funds to the dollar for dollar matching.
And or the grants, right?
Or the grants, yes, correct, yes.
Because we did have a lot of applicants.
I was gonna say, where did we end up on that? Because on our last meeting, I don't have the figure, we,
We were going to have some major decisions to make.
Yes, absolutely.
Deputy Treasurer?
So, through the chair to Councillor Vino, I think what the plan will be is once we land on a number that council wants on that budget line, we'll bring back those asks and I'll poll all of you as to where your priorities are and where you want and the potential dollar amounts. Then we'll put together a matrix and you can allocate the funds as you see fit.
Deputy Mayor? You okay with that versus the putting it into the environmental line?
Yeah, so Daniel, Councillor Ward, you just alluded to some report or whatever that's supposed to be coming up for us. You've opened up the can of worms. I mean, what are you thinking, in the first quarter, second quarter
Well,
of this year?
I'm looking to staff to see, I mean, that's not my, I don't know when it will be coming. I would think that we will be March. So I think that we will be seeing some savings. I don't think that the composting program will be in place this year, 2023, but I do think that 2024, 2025 might be an option, and it would be a full-fledged, is what I would hope to see.
Okay.
Because we'll no longer be, I mentioned this at budget previously, we'll no longer be responsible for recycling. So the funds that we spend for recycling are large, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if we no longer have to spend that, this is our opportunity to run that program. But to be clear, it will not be in 2023.
No,
So if
the
that's-
reports will be coming out.
Yes,
We
I
can
would-
make some
I would
good
assume-
decisions in 2023 for 2024 implementation, hopefully in 2024 is what you're saying.
2020, late 2024, early 2025, I would hope, yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So I will trust Councillor Ward on this mystery report, I guess, that we may or may not see. It would have been nice to, but anyways, I will trust her her opinion on this, and yes, I would say let's not put it back in then. Let's put it, I would support what Councillor Ward is saying and put it in the grants and donations then.
Councilor Vino?
In light of new information, I also agree.
Good.
I agree.
Good.
Okay.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There's always lots of moving parts happening, right? And we'll get the information when it's presented to us, so we'll get that, so not to. Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarity, what was the number we're looking at? Is it 11,000 or 16,000?
Well, whatever, we needed 36 to be at, we need to save for the budget.
Okay, so you want to get back to the 36?
Correct.
Okay.
So that should be 16-ish to add back in,
Okay,
to add that 5.5.
okay.
Councillor Ward?
I just want to make one further comment about the drainage budget, just because I'm pretty passionate about this. I think $10,000 reduction, it should be more than $10,000. So I think there should still be some savings to be seen there. All the fees for the engineer need to be billed back to the drain, not to the tax base. I'm very passionate about that. That's the Drainage Act. I don't want to see it absorbed. So I just think we could see further savings there, and then I'll let staff calculate that. I'm just saying, I think that $10,000 is light. I think it needs to be more there.
Yeah, yes. So our job doesn't end today,
Yes.
right? So we're going to get to a point in the budget, but we have 12 months responsibility of how we spend that. So our job is the coaching and the monitoring and the coming up with solutions and helping our staff save money to the bottom line, right? Whether it's in productivity, in whatever area, right? Reducing costs. That's what we need to continue to work on and look for reports, look for strategies. We're going to enter into a strategic planning event with the team in April, and maybe we'll start driving a vision work for long term, but then specifically areas that we can make improvements along the way. So I think it's really important that, yeah, you're right on. The budget, it's an estimate. I know the previous council spent line by line items. They've done excellent work getting there. We're using some actuals from their work to carry forward. You know, when we looked at a lot of areas, it's costing us more is the bottom line. We're going to spend, we are taking money out of reserves to do that, right? To do those projects that we have. Again, we'll look at revenue streams and we'll go from there. Any other comments on the budget items? Have we given staff the direction that we needed? Okay, well, not that it's ever over, but the exercise was excellent, and I appreciate everybody's time. I know when the staff was preparing the binder, and Tom and I were here while they were printing them to pick them up, and I drove them around to everybody to make sure they were in everybody's hands as fast as we could to start executing the reviews. We have spent many hours on our own, and the staff has spent many hours on it, so thank everybody for their time and the effort. Deputy Mayor?
Just further that, that, Mayor Broad, I mean, you said it elegantly. I mean, it started with the facility tours. It started with the water and wastewater tours. I mean, this budget was created not just by sitting here in one meeting. It's been kind of in the works for a while. We had some ample reports. So there was a lot of transparency that went back and forth with staff in creating a budget that again, I think we'd all like to have it a lot less, but to your point, and as I always express, we're not spending more, it's costing us more. And in my opinion, there's a difference. There's a clear difference. So I appreciate the efforts. I appreciate the efforts for everybody. I also appreciate the efforts from this council as well. I mean, there's been really good insight on a variety of items, so.
Yeah.
I didn't want to steal your thunder, Mayor Broad.
Yeah, no,
I thought
final
I
comments on
wanted
it.
to add
We
that
have
in there.
we have a significant percent of residents that
thank you. I was
aren't meeting the living wage threshold today. So for those residents, every dollar counts, right? There's other members of the population that are okay. They want services and have incomes to offset that. So we have all parts of the residents' world that we're trying to do the best we can for. So I think this is a good budget, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, discussion item 5B, fleet replacement. So follow-ups from, settle, we're okay? Follow-ups from previous fleet discussions, and we're going to keep, the fleet budget's a massive budget, so as we continue to have conversation with the fleet budget, tonight we can look at all the fleet, obviously, but specifically, it's the fire trucks situation as we potentially have future expenditures that we need to get clear on as it affects us, in excess of $900,000, $1 million in our reserve budget for fleet that would start in, next year, end of next year into 2025. So, we need to start planning. If we're ordering trucks, we need to start ensuring we've got what we want created by all. So we'll kick off the next segment to CEO Garrity.
Mayor, Council, and certainly, the fleet replacement schedule is a living document as we go throughout the year. Certainly, we're open to have further conversations, but I think more in specific tonight is some discussion or further discussions on the fire replacement. There's some moving parts right now that Council was brought up to speed on last time, mainly to do with the pump repair that was to be completed on one of our vehicles. So we have received correspondence back from our insurance, can proceed with the repair, or if Council chooses to, there's also a cash settlement for that as well too. So we're looking for some direction from Council tonight on how they want to look at proceeding with the replacements. As Chris alluded to last time, there is a replacement scheduled for 2024, which is the one that we're looking at possibly repairing, as well as 2025. So we're looking to see kind of how Council wants to navigate this moving forward so that we can proceed with direction.
So the truck that we have for repair,
Yes.
the cost of repair is,
It's estimated to be approximately $90,000.
and the insurance offer is,
Approximately $65,000.
so
Yes,
first
the
question
cash
is,
settlement. Yeah, that's right.
how does it affect service today, not having that truck in service?
So that truck is a pump tanker, just for some background.
It is used as a blocker truck on the 401 for emergencies. It is stationed in Morrisburg presently. It is also used as a tanker. On the 401, with all the hazards that are out there, the pump tanker aspect of it is really helpful during fires because of the fact that we can relay pump to the pumper, to the frontline pumper. So it was used quite a bit. It was also used as our spare pumper. So if there was another pumper that was out of service, we would put that one in its place. We don't have that ability now as the pump was frozen, is broken, so it's basically just a 1,500,000 gallon tanker, so that's all it's used. No, right now, we thought that the tank was leaking, that it might cracked. They came and they tightened up one of the fittings that they had to take off, and it's not leaking as much. So it could just be a slight repair to the tank, but there's no signs that it's cracked, so it's just the pump.
And remind us which, on our fleet schedule, which
So in
truck is that?
2025, it'd be Unit 163.
Okay, Unit 163, and it's scheduled for 2025.
Correct.
Okay.
I know, like the back of my hand.
Councilor Ward, sorry.
Me for the non-fire expert. So essentially, if it doesn't have the part that needs to be repaired, what would it be used for in a fire, let's
So,
say?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Ward, it would just be a tanker. A small tanker is all it could be used for shuttling water.
Shuttling water, okay.
Yeah, it can be used as a blocker on the 401, but if there is a fire, we would be calling another station to bring their tanker.
Yeah, no, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Broad. So this is going to be a guesstimate. Of all the calls Mooresburg receives, how many times does that truck go out used for actual fires as a second truck?
As a,
You
like a
said about it being a relay truck.
a relay truck, yep.
So how many times in your guesstimate would it go out in a year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, it would probably be used, well, for every structure fire, it would go out, because that goes through our accreditation, so it has to go out through every structure fire.
Okay.
As a relay pumper, main use for that would be on the 401, as for safety reasons. We don't do a lot of relay at fire scenes. There are some situations where relaying is beneficial for long driveways and that, but it isn't used as often.
Okay. Follow up through you, Mayor Broad. So for the accreditation, do we need to have both pumps in Mooresburg, or can we use a front line and then a secondary from Williamsburg or Iroquois?
Definitely to use a separate pump is not a problem. This is basically, this truck was put into place and it was there. Moving forward, what we would like to see is just a tanker put in there with a external pump put on it.
Oh, okay.
Similar to the one that we have in Iroquois presently now. That feature works great for everything, for house fires, for everything. We use it quite often. So it's just that the Mooresburg truck doesn't have as much water, sorry.
Okay. Follow up?
Yes, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So could this truck get up that same way currently? If we didn't fix the internal pumps, could we do an external?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would have to check with Battle Shield, I would imagine, but it's gravity fed, so I'm not an expert on how it would be done, but the thing about it is the fire pump is in front of the way of the tank right now where it feeds through.
Yes.
So there would have to be plumbing that would be changed, I would imagine, to accommodate the pump.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So we could, just follow up, we could just have it fixed. The insurance company could just fix it, we could just keep that truck.
Correct.
Like, without any cost to us, right?
No.
No, insurance will pay to have it fixed, or we could take the payout
Yeah.
on that. So we could just have it fixed by insurance, no dollar out of our pocket. See, Garrity.
The one thing I will kind of caution the council is that there was the initial claim that will go through insurance, which in turn will most likely increase our insurance premiums. But this is an estimate right now, so once it actually gets in there, there could be more found to be wrong with it. We don't know yet until it goes in. But certainly we want to bring this information to council because you're either A, going to replace or you're going to fix it. If we're looking at getting rid of it in 2024, 5, or you take the cash out value, which is much less.
Councilor Vino.
I got a couple questions.
Yeah.
Obviously. One is, so say we take the payout from the insurance. Do we keep?
Yes.
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 So
Yes.
the payout is $65,000?
Correct, and it could go right into the fleet reserve. If council chose not to spend it right now, it can go into a reserve for now.
Okay, so currently that truck can still function as a tanker. If you replace, if you let insurance go through and repair the pump, that pump is still antiquated technology. So whenever you go to sell that truck, which in our schedule is 2025, the value, whether the pump is in functioning order or the pump isn't, it's not going to drastically affect our trade-in value or proceeds from that. So what I was thinking was, and this is a bigger topic about the rest of the tankers in the fleet, but my idea is we need to go down this road with some input from some other people as far as if we can refurbish our tankers that we have in Williamsburg. But presumably, ideally, I would like to do that. That's the way I would lean towards. And if you do that, you would take one of those out of service. And now if we also got rid of 163, you would now only have 2 tankers in the municipality and we'd lose our. So what I was kind of proposing would be to take the payout for the truck, keep the truck in service as a tanker for the rest of its life, tanker blocker for the rest of its life, because I served on 1.6 and the pump was extremely handy whenever you were at certain calls, but it's nothing that you couldn't have done with a drop in a porta tank and drafting. So the amount of times, what I'm getting at is the amount of times that truck would get used, the pump would actually get used. We had to find ways to use it, for filling up stuff at the fire or at the Canada Day festivities and stuff. So my idea would be to take the payout, put it directly into reserves because we're going to need it, run that truck as a tanker for the rest of its life, and then hopefully be putting some money away for its replacement along the lines of what Chris was saying about a tanker similar to the one that we have at 1.4 with an auxiliary pump on the side of it. And then further explore, because I think $450,000 is what it's going to cost to replace that tanker if we just got rid of it tomorrow.
Tanker pumper?
Yes. So like if we wanted to take the cash out value and then replace it with another tanker, you'd be into $450,000 estimate, because that's what our estimate is on replacing 1.6.
Yes.
1.8.3. And then what kind of comes into my whole idea here is tanker 184, which still isn't updated on here, is still showing as usable life to 2038, which is not even close. Like, we need to have a sit down with our fleet guys because I'm pretty sure they'll be toast in our term.
So I think the 184 is 2028. I know it says 2038 in the estimate, but I think if you look at
even 2028 is going to be. I really think that one is going to fail us in our term. And so that's another discussion that we need to have, because we need to have, yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to call.
It's a whole mass in my head, and it's really hard to get it out, and I apologize.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So that truck, just so you're aware, has taken on substantial repairs to the engine, like substantial. So, yes, it has a lot of miles in it. It's been around a long time. The likelihood of the amount of miles that it puts on, I still see it lasting longer than your term.
Sorry, 184 is what we're referring to?
Yeah, so
Yes, yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. So with what you were saying, it makes completely sense, and we've wrapped it through our heads too. There's lots of options out there. You know, we've been in contact with Battle Shield. They've got a build coming up in October. And the potential of some savings there is good because of the fact that we're not increasing in 2 years' time's prices for the chassis. So there's potential for some savings there if we wanted to go that route. There are other options that we can look at. It's one of those things that to repair this truck, you're still repairing an old chassis, like you were saying. We'll have a brand-new pump on it, and the tank's still in good shape. We'll still have an old truck.
Let's come back to, in a, sorry.
Yeah.
that's the discussion
Fire
today.
So let's come back to what we do to the truck. So let's move ahead with what it takes for accreditation. Because that was really the question that we had last time, is we want to understand exactly what trucks we need to have insurance accreditation.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the accreditation is based on the quantity of volume of water that we have presently. So by taking some away, it affects our accreditation.
Okay, so what trucks do we need to have in what stations less than 20 years old?
Less than 20 years.
Well, that's the mark we come in.
Yeah.
Because I want to understand, on this chart, we keep hearing this truck will be over 20 years old and it's going to cost residents in the rural communities higher insurance rates. I want to know why and what trucks it affects,
Yeah,
right? That's the question we
So
want,
that is
because I
correct.
don't understand.
Correct.
Because I don't understand.
so,
Correct. And the secondary question of that is, what is the actual insurance premium or decrease that we would see on a policy? That was the other question.
Correct.
so
So let's go to Gary, I'll come back to you. CO Garrity?
So I can answer the second question. So on average, people are seeing a 2 to 5% savings on their insurance policy with the accreditation.
Okay,
Okay, Councilor Vino.
thanks.
So I think maybe we'll just, I'll rein myself in here on this one. So tonight's discussion is about tank pump 183 and what we want to do with it. What I would like to see after we decide on that tonight is I would like to see if staff could come, I'd like to put a meeting together just on the accreditation, and I'd like to see if we can have a representative from the insurers, underwriters, whatever their name is, that put that on and accredit us, because we need to understand this better. At the end of the day, if we, to not lose our accreditation, we need to keep 163, idiot. I should keep 163, we need to keep 163 in service at least as a tanker. It seldom gets used as a pumper, so my vote would be to take
I want to know why.
Why?
I want the person from the fire department to tell me why, because I do not understand. I want to understand why. Well, why? What trucks? What is the volume of water? What is
Yeah,
the
so the-
reason? I don't understand. I read the reports, right? And it says the first line vehicle need to be less than 20 years old, and you've said tonight this is a second line vehicle. So why does it need to be less than 20 years old?
So this is considered to be a frontline vehicle once it's used as a tanker for accreditation. Because a frontline pumper is a pumper. That's a separate truck that we're not looking at right now. They have to be, because of the fact of what they do. They pump water, they push the water out. The tankers have to be able to respond to supply the water flow that is needed to fight the fires. So the accreditation says we have to meet a certain level of water being pumped out of the truck at a certain pressure. And you can't lose any water. So if our tanks go dry, the test has failed.
So in each station,
Yeah.
we have a pumper and a tanker.
Correct.
And both of them in each station have to be less than 20 years old.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Deputy Mayor.
So, through you, Mayor Broad, so what you're saying is, we need every truck in South Dundas to meet the accreditation.
Correct.
If we
when we
lose this
test-
one truck,
Yeah,
you're saying we wouldn't meet the accreditation.
correct.
And we've proven that?
Yeah, so this year is going to be another year that we renew our accreditation.
Yes,
It'll be coming up this year.
Yes.
And for the past 5 years, we've been testing.
understood. But we've been tested with all of the
Yeah.
fleet.
Yes.
Have we tested with one or two of the trucks not being part of that test?
No, we've never tested with it.
Okay, so we really don't know then if all of the trucks are really required. It's we've used all the trucks,
Yeah.
and we meet the accreditation. But working backwards, we don't know if we could do it with 4 trucks, or 3 trucks, or 5 trucks. That's
Yeah,
correct?
correct.
Okay, I just want to understand that, Chris. I just want to understand that. So, okay. That doesn't help me with doesn't help me with the solution, because we're trying to meet an accreditation that we don't know if we need all the trucks.
Right,
in.
so in that scenario, we have 6 trucks at $500,000 each. That's $3 million every 20 years. We are not even close to putting away
Correct.
enough money in our reserves to buy these trucks.
Correct.
And buy dump trucks, and snow plows, and any other truck we might need.
That, through you, Mayor Broad, so that's why we need to do more digging on what's actually required for this accreditation. Like, I've been doing lots of research, and NFPA has a set of standards, 1912, that strictly is for refurbishment of equipment, and I'd like to explore that and see if we're using the tank. So, again, staff is looking for direction on just this one truck right now. And I think, being that the pump on the truck doesn't get used much, the tank is required to keep our current accreditation until we go through, and the resale value till we retest. The resale value with a new pump, but it's still old technology, or a broken pump is going to be negligible in 2025. My vote would be keep it as a tanker, take the cash payout. We'll deal with the truck sale in 2025. Until then, we can use it as a tanker, keep our accreditation, and if we decide to refurbish one of our other older tankers and put a new chassis under it instead of buying a new $450,000 tanker, then we have that one still in the fleet to provide water. That would be if they're looking for direction for 163 tonight, that is my idea, if it makes sense.
Deputy Mayor?
Support that.
Councilor Smith?
I agree.
Councilor Ward, comments? Okay, seeing none? Okay.
No, I just have some questions, because fire is hard for me to wrap my head around, and I appreciate Councillor Vino and Deputy Mayor's insight, so I really appreciate that. And I think, as long as we're not losing our accreditation, I'm fine with what Councillor Vino has proposed. But when I read the fire underwriter survey document, which I'll be honest is a little bit over my head, Table 2 says that there has to be a service test for anything that has been refurbished. So does that speak to what you were talking? I'm sorry if that's what you were talking about. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So that's what you were just talking about.
Yeah, so I think, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, basically, so anything refurbished under NFPA 1912, once that's all done, it has to be certified to meet the criteria under 1901, I believe, is what the underwriters will be referring to.
So what happens for you, Mr. Mayor, to council? Is that
1901 states, actually, if you were to go through it, it states that a vehicle that is 15 years of age, once it goes over that, it reduces the safety features that are in an apparatus. So that's why they say once it's 20, you can go up to 20 years and you can refurbish it, which is NFPA 1912. But refurbishment has to bring it up to the standard of today. So it has to deal with stability, braking, the tanks, the baffling of the tanks. Like our tanks don't have baffles in them, except for the newest one. Those are the things that have to bring it up to today's standard. So it's fine to say that we can take a tank, and that has been done in the past. A chassis went underneath a tank, or a tank was rebuilt, and the trucks have been checked. The thing about doing that is, what's the cost going to be if we're just taking one tank and we still have to build the body for that tank to sit on? What's the difference in cost? Because when you go to a supplier, they have an engineered build and it's done. So now you're talking engineering costs and whatever extra costs are going to be there. The tanks, I have no idea about the tanks and what happens with them and how you would refurbish them, but Councillor Vino might know more about that than I do, but it's something that still has to be done. It all has to be brought up. So again, it deals with the stabilization, the transmission, the braking, everything. So to me, there's a lot more than that. Like we kind of want to look at moving forward. We don't want to do something that's going to affect the public down the road with either the underwriters or the fact that we're looking at replacing them within 2 years. We wouldn't want to, our route wouldn't be to fix the truck, because like you said, it's not going to increase the value. We can put $100,000 into this truck, and it's not going to make it, we're not going to get $100,000 for it. If we get $60,000, we'll be lucky, and that'll be in 2 years with a brand new pump. So we kind of, with the decision that's made for 163, we need to know for future down the road which route we're going to take if you're going to decide to take more. So it's just the direction we need to see. That's
Councillor Vino?
That's a much bigger discussion that I would really like to put together a meeting with, some members of fire, underwriters, maybe even Luke at Battle Shield, get some insight for this council to understand what is required of us to meet the accreditation, what the costs are going to be. Like, maybe I'm out to lunch and it's going to be $450,000 regardless of whether we use one of our tanks or we build a new one. But this is all a discussion for another night, I believe. I think at the end of the day, they need to know what to do with 163. And I think, I don't know if Chris agrees and staff agree, but if it's not going to, if we're not going to gain any value by having it fixed with a new pump, like I was saying before, let's just use our truck, take the cash out, use our truck. Again, I just go back to that idea, just speaking of one, and then once that's done, okay, let's look at the rest of the fleet and figure out a direction that council wants to go for the other $750,000 that's on the budget for 4 years from now. So that would be my thing.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we should conclude what we're doing with this pump, with this vehicle now. Yeah. But I would like to just have a couple subsequent questions though, but after we deal with this report, because I do still have a couple questions on this accreditation, just to think ahead a little bit, but I think we should resolve this report now. Yep. And then we can just continue the conversation after. For a few minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah, dealing with 163's broken pump, we would prefer to take the cash payout, restore it to service as a tanker. Second piece, I'd like to direct staff we're going to have a meeting. Councillor Vino will be in that meeting, coordinating discussions with the fire department, anybody involved in accreditation, to bring back a full detailed report that Councillor Ward, myself, and Smith, that didn't spend many years on the South Dundas Fire Department, can clearly understand what the impact is. Because it's a lot of money, and if we need to do it, then we'll do it. Like, I'm not stressing it. I want to know. I want to be really clear on that. And I've looked at the documents, I read things, and then I just need the whole bigger picture. We have 3 stations, maps, pumpers, tankers, insurance. We needed a package. We need a package because so the residents can understand exactly why we need $3 million over 20 years, $150,000. So $150,000 every year for the rest of our, plus inflation, for the rest of our lives, we need to invest in those fire trucks, plus other fire vehicles and et cetera, but just on those 6 units that would need it. Councillor Deputy Mayor?
And I agree with you. Thank you, Mayor Broad, and I agree. But specifically on the accreditation, what I'd like to see, and you just said it was a 2 to 5% value,
Yeah.
but when I do a quick math on my insurance rate, that's maybe $100.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know how many households
Yep.
is benefiting from this, and let's have an average cost per household, and let's, in the report that's forthcoming, and then what does that translate in overall savings? We may or may not find that the overall savings of insurance outweighs the cost of the pumper, tanker, right? So I think we deserve that, just to make with Councillor Vino's a decision here one way or another. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In
Speaking, I called the insurance here in town, the local insurance, Rhonda, and she's the one that told me it could be anywhere from, like, at first they gave me 2 to 5% was the savings, and Rhonda said it could be for some people up to $200. So I don't know, like, that's just what she was telling me. So for some people,
I think
that's a
we could
lot.
do an average. I think we could come up with an average that's going to be close enough to make a decision one way or another, on what we do.
C.O. Garrity?
Okay, so just for some direction for council, so council is good with the cash settlement, so we'll work with the insurer to get that moving forward. We'll keep the vehicle 163 as the tanker moving forward. What we'll do is we'll work with Councillor Vino on getting a meeting set up with the underwriters. We'll get more information and we'll look at bringing a more detailed report back to council in March. If I'm looking at the fleet replacement schedule right now, over the next 5 years, you got $2 million for vehicles that need to be replaced. So the sooner we can get those decisions, I think the sooner we can get those moving forward and get them in the queue if they need to be. So we'll work on that and we'll work with Councilor Vino to make sure we are answering all the questions you guys have tonight.
Perfect.
Councillor Ward? Did you have a question?
No, I just want, nope, that's good. That's exactly what I'm
That's what
looking
you
for.
want, okay,
Yep,
where
that's
you're-
perfect,
I saw
thank
you
you.
had your hand
Yep.
up just before I went to Gary.
No, that's good.
Any other comments on the fleets? Councillor Vino?
Because whenever I was researching this before, this might be something we need to look into. On the website that has a list of all the townships that are accredited for Superior Water Shuttle, we are not on it. So North Dundas, South Glengarry, everybody else is, okay?
Mr. Polino?
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's 2 companies that do the accreditation. The underwriters are the ones that we use. The one that you're looking at with all the other municipalities around us.
Yep.
FPSS. I've been trying to get in contact. I've actually sent emails to all the emails that I could find of theirs, and they still haven't got back to me. The last time we did the accreditation, we tried to switch with them. It was short notice for them, so we still stuck with the underwriters. There's another website for that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
trust me, I get that same call
Yeah,
all the
okay.
time, so.
Alright.
Well, thank you, Fireman, Mr. Polino. Thank you for your time, and I'm starting to also, thank you for your input on that. Now we're getting it, right? And that's the details we need to get to for sure on that. C.O. Garrity?
So just one final remark in regards to the fleet. So as council will see, there, based on our budget meeting on February 3rd, there were some vehicles that we scratched off the list. But the ones that were approved by council, we're going to proceed with getting tender prices. Certainly it comes back to council ultimately for the final decision, but we'll get moving on those as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yep. Any other follow-ups required? C.O. Garrity on fleet?
No, I think we're good. We've got the direction that we need from council. Work with Councilor Vino and get that meeting set up as soon as possible.
Any other final comments? The council now adjourned to meet at the call of the chair. Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? So as we conclude the special council meeting for the Municipality of South Dundas for February 23rd, I'd like to say thanks to the whole council team and the staff team, certainly Recreation, Fire, Wastewater, Treasury, especially on this one, Fire Services for tonight, admin, customer service. So thanks to the whole team for everything they've done. Welcome our new Clerk, Crystal LeBrun, welcome. And to those all in attendance, thank you for joining us, investing your time online, or viewing us as a recording at a future time. We will reconvene Monday, March 13th. So I'd like to say to all those connected, this team is certainly proud to be representing you. Thank you and good night.